Hey, this is Tony from the Cold Case Project, where we focus on unsolved cases across the United States. Our mission is to bring attention to these unresolved mysteries that need your help. All the information we cover in these cases is readily available on the internet, but we rewrite and repurpose it for the purpose of these videos. Our goal is to spread the word about the thousands of unsolved cold cases still out there. Thank you for watching. If you want to help shed light on these cases, make sure to like and subscribe for more content. Your support can make a difference.
The story of Cherrie and Mahan, an 8-year-old girl who vanished on a seemingly ordinary afternoon, continues to haunt Pennsylvania, and indeed, the nation. Born on August 14, 1976, Cherrie's life took a tragic turn on February 22, 1985, a day that began with the simple routine of a school bus ride home, but ended in a mystery that endures to this day. Cherrie's early life was marked by a close bond with her mother, Janice Mahan. Janice, just 16 when Cherrie was born, described their relationship as exceptionally tight, saying, "We were always together. We grew up together. She was my life." Later, Janice married Leroy McKinney, a Vietnam veteran, who embraced Cherrie as his own daughter. The family eventually settled on Cornplanter Road in Butler County, seeking a peaceful, wooded environment to raise their children. Cherrie attended Winfield Elementary School, where she was remembered as a bright, happy, and popular child. February 22, 1985, began with an air of anticipation. Cherrie was excited about a planned play date after school. Janice accompanied her daughter to the bus stop, a location approximately 50 feet from the base of their uphill driveway. As the school bus arrived, mother and daughter exchanged "I love yous," a tender moment that would soon be overshadowed by unimaginable sorrow. That afternoon, as school let out, witnesses, including Cherrie's fellow students, reported seeing 2 vehicles following the school bus. The first was a van, a 1970s-era Dodge, possibly a 1976 model. It was described as blue or bluish-green, with a distinctive, hand-painted mural on its side. The mural depicted snow-capped mountains and a skier, dressed in red and yellow, gliding down the slope. A small, blue sedan was also seen following the bus, though details about this second vehicle and its driver remain scarce. At approximately 4:10 p.m., Cherrie and 3 other children were dropped off at their bus stop. Typically, parents would be waiting in their cars along the road to pick up their children, including Cherrie's mother, Janice. However, that day, the weather was unseasonably mild. Janice made the decision to allow Cherrie to walk the short distance home alone, a walk of about 150 yards from the bus stop to the family's driveway. This was the first time Cherrie had been given this independence. Neighbor Debbie Burke was in her car that afternoon, waiting to pick up her son and the other 2 children. She watched as the children, including Cherrie, disembarked the bus, laughing and talking, a familiar scene after a day at school. In her statement to investigators, Burke recounted, "The kids played for a while. I made sure that Jerry had walked past the car. Then I drove away. I caught a glimpse of the blue van in my mirror. It was right behind me. My son saw the van, too." Importantly, neither Burke nor the school bus driver saw Cherrie get into the van. Authorities have consistently stated that there is no definitive proof that the van was involved in Cherrie's disappearance, but they sought to speak with the driver as part of their investigation. At the McKinney home, located about 50 yards up a hill on Cornplanter Road, Leroy McKinney heard the school bus arrive. After about 10 minutes passed and Cherrie hadn't appeared, Leroy and Janice became concerned. They went to check on her, but Cherrie was nowhere to be found. The ground search of the immediate area revealed a chilling detail. There were no small footprints in the snow, the kind Cherrie would have left. However, investigators did find tire impressions in the soil of the driveway, about 50 yards from the house. The authorities were immediately notified, and the search for Cherrie began. The first step was to disseminate Cherrie's description to surrounding law enforcement agencies. Then came the difficult task of interviewing the parents. Investigators sat with Janice and Leroy in their kitchen, their devastation palpable. They couldn't comprehend how anyone could want to harm their little girl. As questions were asked and statements taken, investigators couldn't help but notice a child's Valentine drawing, rendered in crayon, hanging on the refrigerator door, a poignant reminder of a life that had been so abruptly interrupted. No amount of training can fully prepare law enforcement officers for the raw emotion, the fear, and the heartbreak of parents facing the disappearance of their child. Janice and Leroy stated that they knew of no one who would want to hurt Cherrie. Janice shared that Cherrie had never been away from her for more than a day in her entire life, a testament to their incredibly close bond. Leroy, a Vietnam veteran, had witnessed a share of tragedy, but he described this pain as unlike anything he had ever experienced. He had raised Cherrie as his own daughter, and the family had moved to their mobile home on the wooded lot, a place Leroy believed would be ideal for raising children. Janice, her voice filled with tears, described Cherrie as a little devil, a child who was super friendly with everyone, the kind of child who might have trusted a familiar face and gotten into a car without much hesitation. She explained that her closeness with Cherrie was deeper than what many would consider normal. Janice had Cherrie when she was just 16, and they had always been inseparable. Despite the obvious distress and cooperation of the parents, investigators, as a matter of procedure, had to rule them out as suspects. Both Janice and Leroy agreed to take polygraph tests, and they passed without any indication of deception. While investigators interviewed over 1,600 people, a ground search was launched. Over 250 volunteers joined the effort to find Cherrie. Bloodhounds were brought to the scene where Cherrie was last seen, but they were unable to pick up her scent beyond that point. Every available member of law enforcement, including the FBI, meticulously searched the surrounding area, but the 8-year-old seemed to have vanished without a trace. The search for the van proved equally challenging. Investigators checked the registrations of more than 500 similar vans, but none matched the description. Eventually, they concluded that if the van was indeed involved in the abduction, it had likely been repainted to evade detection. Authorities remained determined to bring Cherrie home. Thousands of flyers were distributed, featuring Cherrie's picture and a drawing of the distinctive van. Neighbors and local businesses contributed to a reward fund, which eventually exceeded $40,000 for information leading to the arrest and conviction of Cherrie's abductor. Despite these extensive efforts, no viable leads ever materialized. Like so many missing person cases, Cherrie's case grew cold just 9 months after her disappearance. The primary efforts to keep her story in the public eye came from 2 sources: local groups dedicated to combating child abduction, and a television series that dramatized the abductions of missing children to raise public awareness. A dramatization of Cherrie's abduction was filmed as part of this series, aiming to educate the public on child safety. As time passed, Janice and Leroy faced the agonizing task of trying to rebuild their lives, to find some semblance of a daily routine amidst the unfathomable tragedy. They had meticulously preserved Cherrie's room, leaving it exactly as it was the day she disappeared. A stack of unopened Christmas and birthday gifts remained on her bed, a silent testament to the hope that she would one day return. Janice reluctantly returned to her job at a nursing home, driven by a specific, heart-wrenching fear. She worried that if she left the house, she might miss a call from Cherrie. What if somehow her daughter was still alive and managed to reach a phone to call for help? The thought of that missed call tormented her. To alleviate this torment, Janice purchased an answering machine and recorded a message for her daughter, a message filled with unwavering love and desperate hope. "Cherrie, I love you. Read me the phone number off the phone, or call the operator and ask her to get the National Center for Missing Children in Washington. They'll help bring you home." Janice has waited for that call for decades, a call that has never come. While the Pennsylvania State Police continued to review the boxes of Cherrie's case files, searching for any overlooked clue, several key points of the investigation have emerged over the years. Serial kidnapping theory. Police explored the possibility that Cherrie might have been a victim of a serial kidnapper. Similar cases of children being abducted by someone driving a blue van were reported in California and Texas. However, no concrete link between these cases and Cherrie's disappearance has ever been established. Acquaintance abduction theory. Some investigators believe that Cherrie knew her abductor or abductors. This theory is supported by the idea that Cherrie, a cautious child, would have been less likely to get into a vehicle with a stranger. However, no family members have ever been identified as persons of interest. In January 2011, police received a tip from a source they deemed credible, providing information considered crucial to the investigation. While the details of this tip were not publicly released due to the ongoing investigation, authorities stated that the information was more specific than anything they had received in many years. They also indicated that this information suggested Cherrie was unlikely to still be alive. Janice Mahan McKinney believes that the person who abducted her daughter is somehow connected to the man who raped her when she was 15, the assault that resulted in Cherrie's conception. At the time, police did not believe Janice's allegations, and no charges were ever filed. The biological father never acknowledged Cherrie or attempted to gain custody. Investigators have questioned him and determined that he is not a suspect. In March 2025, a new tip focused attention on a 26-acre property across from Cherrie's grandparents' former residence. The property had not been thoroughly searched during the initial investigation. The tip centered on a 2 to 3 acre section of the property, believed to potentially hold key evidence. The property owners cooperated with the renewed investigation. Janice McKinney has publicly appealed for volunteers with cadaver dogs or ground-penetrating radar equipment to help search the property. Janice McKinney's words express the enduring agony of the unknown. "I never wish this upon anybody, to have to deal with this. 40 years of not knowing is a killer. Not knowing is horrible. It's excruciating. Every single day, I get killed a little bit more with not knowing. I'm at the point in my life where I physically, mentally, just cannot do this anymore. I'd be happy with a bag of bones because this is just something that people don't understand how hard this is." Janice Mahan McKinney has been searching for her daughter for 4 decades. If you have any information that could help bring Cherrie home or that could assist law enforcement in solving this cold case, please contact the Pennsylvania State Police at 724-284-8100. The disappearance of Anita Scott remains a perplexing and unsolved mystery that has troubled investigators and her family for years. The key details of her case paint a complex picture filled with unanswered questions and conflicting accounts. Anita Scott was last seen on the evening of February 20th, 2003, as she departed her residence on Sycamore Mills Road in Upper Providence Township, Delaware County, Pennsylvania. That evening, she had dinner with her husband, Robert Scott, and their son. After the meal, she informed them that she was going out, but crucially, she did not specify where she was going, nor did she indicate when she expected to return. According to her husband, Anita's behavior at the time seemed normal, offering no immediate clues to her intentions or state of mind. Scott left her home driving her silver 1986 Volkswagen Golf. The car bore Pennsylvania license plate number EGA 7600. This vehicle would later become a significant piece of the puzzle, as it was eventually located in a location far from her home. Scott has not been seen or heard from since that night. Her sudden and unexplained departure triggered an investigation that has, to this day, yielded no definitive answers about her fate. Robert Scott, Anita's husband, did not report her missing until 2 days after she was last seen. This delay in reporting her disappearance has raised questions and has been a point of contention in the investigation. Robert Scott's explanation for the delay was that Anita had a history of leaving home for short periods, sometimes up to 24 hours, without providing any explanation. He claimed that she would eventually return without discussing her absence. However, this explanation is strongly contradicted by Anita's family, who stated that they were completely unaware of any such prior disappearances. This discrepancy between the accounts of Anita's husband and her family added a layer of complexity to the investigation. The discovery of Anita Scott's vehicle provided some clues, but also deepened the mystery. Her silver Volkswagen Golf was found in downtown Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, parked a metered spot on 22nd Street near Market Street. This location is approximately 20 miles away from her home in Upper Providence Township. The car had been issued multiple parking tickets, indicating that it had been parked there for several days. It was eventually towed on February 25, 2003, 5 days after Anita was last seen. A search of the vehicle revealed some of Anita Scott's personal belongings, but also raised further questions. Inside the car, investigators found her eyeglasses, her purse, and her checkbook. However, her wallet was missing. This detail suggested the possibility of foul play or a deliberate attempt to conceal her whereabouts. The presence of some personal items, but the absence of others, created a confusing and unsettling scenario. Despite being a woman of considerable wealth, Anita Scott did not live an extravagant lifestyle. She had inherited several $1,000,000 from an uncle, but she maintained a modest way of life. In 2003, it was reported that she typically carried only $25 to $50 in cash and a few credit cards. This information made the discovery of her car, with some of her belongings left inside, even more puzzling. Adding another layer of intrigue to the case is the location where her car was found. The vehicle was parked near her uncle's former home. This detail has led to speculation about whether Anita's disappearance might be connected to her family history or her inheritance. Anita Scott was a well-educated and accomplished woman. She was a trained lawyer and a graduate of Temple Law School. However, at the time of her disappearance, she had not been actively practicing law for several years. She was a mother to one son, who was a high school senior when she went missing. Her family and friends described her as a devoted Catholic who attended Mass regularly. In the years following Anita's disappearance, her husband, Robert Scott, sold the home they shared in Upper Providence Township and moved to a smaller residence. Both Robert Scott and their son have reportedly cooperated fully with the investigation into her disappearance. They have provided information and answered questions from law enforcement, but the case remains unsolved. It is a case marked by conflicting accounts, unanswered questions, and a lack of concrete evidence. The mystery surrounding her fate continues to haunt those who knew her and remains a subject of ongoing investigation and speculation.
The disappearance of Diane Scott is a haunting and perplexing case that continues to cast a long shadow over Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. It's a story marked by a delayed investigation, suspicious circumstances, and a family's enduring quest for answers. While the official missing person report was filed on May 24, 2001, the timeline of Diane's last known activities points to an earlier date, deepening the mystery surrounding her fate. Diane Scott, a 39-year-old mother, was known to be a devoted and active member of the Bethuel Temple Church, a pillar of her community. By all accounts, she was a woman with strong ties to her faith and a deep commitment to her family. Those who knew her described her as kind, sweet, and fiercely protective of those she loved. She was also remembered as petite, standing just 4 feet 11 inches tall and weighing around 109 pounds. The morning of her disappearance, believed to be May 5, 2001, seemed like any other. Diane dropped one of her children off at school. It was a routine act of motherhood, a simple goodbye that would soon take on a chilling significance. She never returned to pick up her child that afternoon. This deviation from her normal routine immediately raised alarm. Detective Brian Jackson of the Dauphin County District Attorney's Office later expressed the unsettling nature of this detail, stating, what mother forgets to pick up their child from school? This question, simple yet profound, underscores the deep sense of unease that permeated the early stages of the investigation. Concerned and bewildered, Diane's loved ones quickly spread the word that she hadn't collected her children. Her brother, Kevin Thomas, driven by a growing sense of dread, rushed to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, determined to uncover the truth. Kevin recalled the moment he arrived, stating, "I had a gut feeling that something was amiss. She's not the type to vanish." His words capture the disbelief and fear that gripped Diane's family as they grappled with the inexplicable absence of a woman they knew so well. Despite the authorities' efforts, the initial investigation quickly focused on a single person of interest. Their identity has been withheld from the public, as they have never been formally charged with any offense related to Diane's disappearance. Detective Jackson disclosed that this individual had been repeatedly questioned over the years, but these interrogations yielded no substantial breakthroughs. "We keep hitting dead ends," Jackson lamented, a sentiment that echoed the frustration and despair that plagued the investigation. 2 decades later, the mystery of Diane Scott's disappearance remains unsolved. The lack of concrete evidence and the inability to extract a confession or a definitive account of what transpired have left the case mired in uncertainty. However, amidst the dead ends and unanswered questions, a few unsettling clues emerged. One puzzling detail that continues to haunt investigators is the absence of a large tub from Diane's home. Given Diane's small stature, the disappearance of such an object has fueled speculation that something violent may have occurred at her residence. Detective Jackson, reflecting on this disturbing element, expressed his belief that Diane is no longer alive, a grim assessment that underscores the gravity of the circumstances. Diane's family members, living with the agonizing uncertainty of her fate, have taken on a heartbreaking ritual. They routinely check with morgues and coroners' offices whenever unidentified bodies are discovered, clinging to a sliver of hope that they might find closure, that they might finally learn what happened to their loved one. Kevin Thomas articulated this enduring pain, stating, "I don't think I'll ever find peace until I discover what happened, and I'll always hold on to that glimmer of hope that she might return one day." His words, filled with both sorrow and unwavering hope, encapsulate the emotional torment that has defined the family's experience. At the time of her disappearance, Diane Scott was described as a vibrant and active woman. She had recently purchased a new car, a symbol of a life moving forward. She had also enrolled in cosmetology school, pursuing new aspirations and dreams. Her life, by all accounts, was filled with purpose and promise, making her sudden disappearance all the more inexplicable. Diane's early life was marked by tragedy. Both of her parents died within a 2-month period, when she was just 6 years old. She and her sister were subsequently raised by their aunt and uncle, demonstrating the strength and resilience that characterized her family. The disappearance of Rabihan Siders is a chilling tale of domestic discord, alleged violence, and a legal battle that left many questions unanswered. It's a case marked by disturbing accusations, physical evidence that pointed to foul play, and a community grappling with the unsettling mystery of what became of a woman who vanished without a trace. Rabihan Siders was last seen in Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania, on March 28, 2012. At the time of her disappearance, she shared a home with her husband, Hap A. Siders, at 100 block of Willow Mill Park Road in Silver Spring Township, Pennsylvania. The couple also maintained a condo in Ventnor City, New Jersey, suggesting a life of some affluence, yet one that was, behind closed doors, allegedly marred by significant turmoil. The relationship between Rabihan and Hap Siders was, to put it mildly, troubled. The details that emerged about their interactions paint a disturbing picture of alleged abuse and control. In the summer of 2011, their relationship took a violent turn when, during an argument, Hap reportedly punched Rabihan repeatedly in the head, an assault that necessitated medical treatment. This incident was not an isolated event, but rather, according to Rabihan, part of a pattern of abuse. In December of that year, Hap pleaded guilty to misdemeanor assault in connection with this incident, a legal acknowledgement of the violence that had occurred. He was subsequently fined $300 and ordered to pay court costs, a seemingly meager consequence for such a brutal act. The extent of the alleged abuse was further detailed in a petition for a temporary protective order filed by Rabihan against her husband in September 2011. In this legal document, Rabihan expressed her fear for her life, stating that Hap had threatened to kill her and dismember her body, saying he would put her remains in the river in many pieces. This chilling threat, documented in court records, painted a portrait of a relationship defined by fear and intimidation. Rabihan's petition went on to describe a history of physical violence, alleging that Hap had subjected her to repeated acts of aggression, including punching, kicking, pulling her hair, and choking her. The court granted the protective order, offering Rabihan a temporary measure of safety, but it expired in November 2011, leaving her vulnerable once again. Hap Siders was a man with a history that extended beyond the allegations of domestic abuse. In his early adulthood, he amassed a small fortune as a coin dealer, a venture that showcased his business acumen. However, his success was followed by a fall from grace. He was later imprisoned for fraud, a conviction that cast a shadow over his character and raised questions about his integrity. In a peculiar twist of fate, in 1981, he testified before a U.S. Senate hearing on elder abuse, describing his involvement in trading counterfeit coins. This testimony, while seemingly unrelated to Rabihan's disappearance, added another layer of complexity to the narrative, revealing a man with a past marked by both ambition and deception. As the couple's relationship deteriorated, a battle of accusations ensued. While Rabihan accused Hap of physical and emotional abuse, Hap countered by accusing Rabihan of financial impropriety. He claimed that she had taken money from his accounts and valuables from their home without his permission, further muddying the waters and creating a web of conflicting narratives. In the midst of this turmoil, Rabihan confided in friends and her daughter, sharing her deepest fears and suspicions. She expressed her belief that if anything were to happen to her, the police should look no further than Hap. She specifically told her daughter that she was afraid Hap would beat her to death, or, in a chillingly specific detail, poison her with antifreeze. These statements, made in a context of fear and vulnerability, would later take on a haunting significance in the investigation. The investigation into Rabihan's disappearance was marked by both meticulous procedure and disturbing discoveries. Law enforcement officers searched the Siders' home in Silver Spring Township, the place where Rabihan was last known to have resided. Their search yielded unsettling evidence. Bloodstains were found on the carpet, indicating that a violent event may have occurred within the home. Further investigation led to an even more gruesome discovery. Bone fragments were found in the fireplace ash within the chimney. The presence of these fragments raised immediate and alarming questions about the possibility of foul play and the potential destruction of evidence. However, the bone fragments presented a challenge to investigators. They were too degraded to be tested for DNA, leaving their origin and connection to Rabihan's disappearance shrouded in mystery. The bloodstains, on the other hand, offered a more definitive clue. Investigators were able to test the blood, and the results confirmed the worst fears. It was Rabihan's. This discovery provided the first tangible evidence that Rabihan had suffered a violent injury, strengthening the suspicion that she was the victim of a crime. Following Rabihan's disappearance, Hap Siders moved to Manahawkin, New Jersey. The case remained open, a cold case, simmering with unanswered questions and unresolved suspicions. Then, in March 2019, 7 years after Rabihan vanished, authorities made a significant move. Hap Siders was charged with criminal homicide, evidence tampering, and abuse of a corpse. The charges represented a culmination of years of investigation, a decision driven by the weight of the evidence and the persistent belief that Rabihan had met a violent end. The legal proceedings that followed were closely watched and highly contentious. Hap Siders' defense team argued that the prosecution had failed to definitively prove that Rabihan was dead, a bold strategy that sought to exploit the absence of a body. They proposed an alternative theory, suggesting that Rabihan was alive and had fled the country, perhaps to her native Kyrgyzstan, taking with her a substantial sum of money, allegedly $1 million worth of Hap's assets. This defense painted a picture of a woman who had orchestrated her own disappearance, a narrative that clashed sharply with the prosecution's theory of a violent crime. In September 2020, the 8-day trial reached its conclusion. The jury, after considering the evidence and the arguments presented by both sides, acquitted Hap Siders of all charges. The verdict sent shockwaves through the community and left Rabihan's fate shrouded in even greater uncertainty. The absence of a body, coupled with the defense's alternative theory, had created enough reasonable doubt to prevent a conviction. Despite the acquittal, foul play is still widely suspected in Rabihan's disappearance. The circumstances surrounding her vanishing, the history of alleged abuse, the presence of her blood in the home, and the missing bone fragments all point to a scenario far more sinister than a voluntary departure. The case remains open. The disappearance of Edward Sakielski is a haunting and perplexing case, marked by unusual circumstances, a possible sighting thousands of miles away, and lingering questions about the fate of a man seemingly on the brink of a major life change. Edward Sakielski was last seen in Taylor, Pennsylvania, on January 26, 1998. He lived alone at the Maple Manor Trailer Park, residing in a home on the 300 block of Haverford Drive. The discovery of his empty residence and the strange scene left behind paint a picture of a man in transition, or perhaps in crisis. The manager of the trailer park, concerned by Edward suddenly not picking up his mail, decided to check on him at his home. What he found was a scene that was both orderly and deeply unsettling. The residence was deserted, devoid of any sign of Edward's presence. His Ford pickup truck, a vehicle his sister noted he enjoyed driving, was still parked outside, an anomaly that immediately raised concerns. Inside the trailer, the manager encountered an even more peculiar situation. All of Edward's belongings were meticulously packed into boxes. Each box was accompanied by notes, carefully addressed to individuals Edward apparently intended to leave his possessions to. This meticulous preparation suggested a planned departure, but the nature of the notes, combined with other factors, hinted at a more ominous possibility. Prior to his disappearance, Edward Sakielski had been employed at a warehouse and supplemented his income with various odd jobs. His sister, who knew him well, found his decision to leave his truck behind particularly baffling. She stated that he had very little money at the time of his disappearance, a detail that further complicated the mystery. Adding to the unsettling nature of the situation, Edward's sister revealed that some of the notes he left behind led her to believe that he was contemplating ending his life. This revelation cast a dark shadow over the investigation, suggesting that Edward's disappearance might not have been a simple matter of leaving town. The mystery surrounding Edward Sakielski's disappearance took an unexpected turn in March 1999, more than a year after he was last seen in Pennsylvania. A report surfaced from Honolulu, Hawaii, thousands of miles away from his home. According to the report, someone using Edward Sakielski's social security number and the name Ed Robert Sakielski claimed to be the victim of an assault and robbery. This report introduced a tantalizing possibility. Had Edward Sakielski started a new life on a distant island? The details of this reported assault and robbery were intriguing, but ultimately inconclusive. The assault victim had no forwarding address and was believed to be homeless. However, he was reportedly receiving regular treatments at the Waikiki Health Club. This detail suggested a degree of stability and access to resources, yet the health club, bound by confidentiality laws, was unable to provide any further information about the patient or the nature of his treatments. Authorities faced a daunting challenge in attempting to verify the identity of the man in Hawaii. They were never able to definitively determine whether he was, in fact, Edward Sakielski, or whether someone else had stolen his identity. The possibility of identity theft added another layer of complexity to an already perplexing case, leaving investigators to grapple with the uncertainty of whether they were pursuing a missing person or a case of assumed identity. To this day, the fate of Edward Sakielski remains a mystery. Authorities are uncertain whether he met with foul play, took his own life, or embarked on a new, unannounced chapter in his life. His case remains unsolved. Adding a poignant layer to this mystery is Edward Sakielski's background as a Vietnam War veteran. The experiences of war can leave lasting scars, both physical and emotional, and it was reported that Edward was distraught over work and family issues in the period leading up to his disappearance. Whether these factors played a role in his decision to leave or contributed to a more tragic outcome remains unknown.